give you a little bit lay of the land of what we're going to talk about today. So my name is Eric Bersano. I'm the VP of Business Development here at Elite Legal Marketing. And my goal is to show you some of the things that we've been seeing in the industry. A lot of these things you've probably already seen for yourself, but I thought it would be good to present some things from our perspective. And then my co-host here, Joshua, is going to present a lot of data that Clio has put together over the last couple of years that I think will be very informative. So with that, Joshua, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks so much, Eric. Hi, I'm Joshua Lennon. I'm the lawyer in residence at Clio, which is a very unusual title. But my role at Clio is to actually act as a translator between the needs of legal professionals and a technology company, and in instances like this, translate what technology is telling us back to the legal profession. I'm an attorney admitted into New York. I've been working with Clio now for almost 14 years. And one of the projects that I work on year round is our annual legal trends report, which is a big data dive into the practice of law, looking at what the use of Clio software is telling us how lawyers are practicing law, as well as further research activities like secret shopper activities, where we reach out to law firms to on as prospective clients to find out how they're really handling their business development. Very excited to be here, and I've got a couple of my teammates in the background supporting as well. I want to thank them for helping set this up.
All right, thank you, Joshua. And with that, we will dive in. So to get started here, our opening screen, for those of you who are Game of Thrones fans, this is Jon Snow getting ready to take on the hordes. And this is a simple illustration of what I see happening all over the country, which is we've got a lot of good local trial attorneys that over the last 2 to 3 years are up against what we see as some insurmountable odds. And the rest of this presentation from my side is going to be honing in on that perspective. Lots more competition, a lot more money being poured into legal marketing, and a lot more marketing channels than we've seen ever before. So, with that, I wanted to get into the lay of the land. So, the first thing I'd want to identify here is the fact that law firms now are fighting on four fronts. So, let's just take the first and the biggest of these, which would be the national giant. These are your Morgan and Morgans, who are really going after a national law firm presence. And then you have some other firms like Lerner and Rowe or Sweet James that have big presences in different regions. And the one thing about these law firms is they've been doing this for years. They've been honing their marketing skills, and they are some of the early adopters to AI. So they're operating an extremely efficient law firm. And this is something that I think wasn't a big deal 10 years ago and maybe not even 5 years ago. But if you're not operating efficiently, if you're not at least playing the game locally the way that they're playing it from a national and regional standpoint, you're going to start falling behind. The other thing that we've seen an explosion of over the last 2 to 3 years is the ABS law firms. And for those of you on this call not familiar with that model, those are law firms out of Arizona that are allowed to have non-attorney partners. Now, what that means is it's bringing a ton of private equity money. That equity money is being used to beef up their technology, expand their marketing budget. And the one thing that I've heard from lawyers that I talk to is they say, well, that's in Arizona. Well, the thing that they're doing is they're partnering with other law firms in other states. They're helping to fund their marketing. They're pulling those cases in, and then they're getting a chance to split those fees. So these ABS law firms are having a law firm that's run like a tech company. They're hiring, business managers out of Harvard Law School. They're employing this technology at a rapid rate so that they can compete either locally with you or on a national front with the Morgan and Morgans of the world. Number three would be your local competition. These are the same law firms that you're probably friends with or, somewhat have a competition with in your local market. So that hasn't changed. But some of these law firms locally are adopting this technology and marketing strategies faster. And I want to show you throughout this presentation some points where you can be an early adopter and get a first mover advantage. There's certain things that people have not adopted fully yet or are not optimizing to the maximum yet, so that you can creep up and take advantage of some new technologies that they might not be employing properly. And then the last would be these lead gen companies. These have been around for years, but we've seen a real big increase in the amount of money being spent on lead gen. The downside of this is they're not playing by the rules. There are ads that you may have seen that would either be embarrassing to you as a lawyer or could possibly get you disbarred. For anybody who hasn't seen these, they'll make outlandish promises, guarantees of sign up, six-figure verdicts. They'll use very uncouth techniques with money flying around and things that most attorneys really wouldn't feel comfortable advertising with. But that doesn't matter because they're still competing for the same types of cases that you want.
Eric, can I jump in here?
Sure.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about this is how this makes it so much more difficult for a lawyer to run their normal business development. When you look at all of this different type of competition, spending from a variety of different sources, right? Like Morgan and Morgan is not really a law firm; they're just an advertising business, right? That's what they do. Private equity backing all of this, local competition who is just trying to get the same type of business that you're going for. What we see is that increases the cost for everyone going into this. And so every dollar they spend is making it that much more expensive for you. Several years ago, the US Chamber of Commerce at the national level took a look at lawyer advertising. And one of the things they found is that of the top 100 search terms that Google sells, close to 90% of them were related to legal issues. And the remaining 10%, honestly, I think were just legal issues without the word lawyer attached to it, right? Like construction problems. You're like, you're going to need a lawyer. So what we see is you're having to compete in a system that is almost rigged to make it very expensive, especially if you're inefficient. The other thing you have to realize is just like with the lead gen companies who have no ethics restrictions, you do. And so when you're hiring a lead gen company, if they're operating without ethical compliance, you can't take those leads in many jurisdictions. There are several ethics opinions out there that are saying if a partner like an ABS law firm or a lead gen company is using a method that is not permitted by your local rules, you don't get to work with them. So not only are they making it more expensive, you can't even take advantage of some of the things that they're doing. So what do you do in that type of situation?
Thanks, Joshua. And yeah, please feel free to jump in at any time.
So one of the things that Clio does is we publish our legal trends report. And this is an annual report where we use big data analysis and surveys to look at the practice of law. And one of the things we've begun doing is actually interviewing clients on issues around professional legal services that are important to them. And in our 2018 report, one of the things we took a look at was when you're hiring a lawyer, what's important in that interaction? What do you really want to get from it to help make your decision? And easily the most important uh, interaction that clients were telling us is that they want a timely response. If you look, it was over 25% of them said it was the most important thing they were looking for when approaching any type of legal service provider. And it was 50% of total responses said this is the most important thing for them. And what we learned from this is not only is it important to be timely, but just how fast you have to move. If we go to the next slide, what we found is that 79% of legal consumers are expecting a response within 24 hours. Now, I think there's 2 points here. The first of which is that whenever somebody's actually reaching out to a law firm, it's because they've identified a need. Unfortunately, it's generally something has gone wrong and they're looking for immediate help, right? So that's part of the impetus here. But part of this is they're actually able to find a lot of potential service providers, all of that competition that Eric was talking about before, right? And so if they're not getting a response quickly within 24 hours, they're moving on because they've got a big list of people to contact. And so what we're seeing here is that this competition is not only making things more expensive for you, but they're really narrowing the time in which you have to really put your best foot forward and seize the business that's coming your way. Thanks, Eric.
Sure. So this next slide, I don't want it to seem too intimidating. The one thing that I really try to tell most law firms is you don't have to do everything, but you do have to pick the top of the funnel and bottom of the funnel marketing channels. The one big advantage that you have is that you are a local brand. You need to embrace that. And one thing that I would suggest to every lawyer who's listening to this is to actually try to craft a brand for yourself. It doesn't have to be a cheesy tagline, but it has to be something that differentiates yourself. The one thing that I hear over and over and over from all attorneys is, well, we give personal service, no one's going to work harder. We answer our phones. This is what 90% of your competition is already saying. Everyone thinks that's their unique selling proposition. You have to divert from that. You have to find something else that's going to be a short, succinct message that your local community can understand, and that can be your branding tool. Brand was not a big deal 10 years ago. If you had, and any people who are listening to this who had a practice 10 years ago will know, if you were doing really well on organic search, meaning whether you were doing PPC or maps or organic, that was really all that you needed to do. Now that you have these big national firms and these firms that are utilizing social media, TV, and billboards more than they ever have before, that brand really matters. And I know this for a fact because I have clients in different markets, one who's built up a brand over years and another one who just ranks really well in Google. It is a 2 to 3x improvement for the attorney that has brand. Because when someone does that local search, when you do show up in the maps, that little bit of recognition makes all the difference of who gets the first click. The
Eric,
next,
could we translate a couple terms there, just in
sure.
case the audience? Yeah, you talked about top of funnel and bottom of the funnel. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so top of the funnel would be somebody who hasn't decided to hire an attorney yet. That's
Mhm.
somebody who can be affected by your brand message, or maybe they're just starting their investigative process. And what I always tell people is most people have never hired an attorney in their entire life. It's an intimidating process for them
Hmm.
to actually call and speak to a lawyer. So, one of the things that you want to do is break down that barrier, educate that person. So, a top of the funnel might be a video that you produce, which is what are the first three things you have to do after a car accident? Now, a person who sees that video might not necessarily be ready to pick up the phone yet, but you're educating them on who you are and that you're an expert in what you do. So that's a top of the funnel. If
Yeah,
you
where you're really just talking about the legal problem, not about the legal services.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is something that would be identified through either a video or a blog. So you'll notice that most blog posts are very general. They're educational. Whereas
Hmm.
a practice area page, bottom of the funnel, car accident lawyer, personal injury lawyer near me. That's the bottom of the funnel. That's
Yeah.
somebody who's what we say is in a buying mode. They are looking to hire somebody. That's obvious to everybody, but a lot of people ignore that top of the funnel section that's really putting yourself in that branding area and that
Hmm.
educational area. A very simple one would be estate planning. So people are going to do a lot of research before they're going to say, do I need a will? I just had a child. Should I set up a trust? What do I do with my house? What if I'm going through a divorce? A lot of that is very, very top of the funnel because people want to educate themselves before they reach out. If they educate themselves on your website or through your video content, you are much more likely to get them when they're at the bottom of the funnel approach.
And I had just one other term to ask, and you used the abbreviation PPC. I
Yep.
know what that is, but maybe the audience doesn't. What are those?
Sure, that's a generic term for pay per click.
Hmm.
So for those that are aware of Google AdWords, if I type in car accident lawyer Austin and you're going to see the sponsored ads, if I click on that sponsored ad, that could cost me anywhere from 50 to $300.
Yeah.
And those paid ads, you'll also see above those are LSAs, local service ads. Those are the ones where you see an actual photo of the attorney. Those are actually paying for leads, not a click. So you only get charged for those if the person texts, emails, or calls you. And those are usually 3 to 4 times what a click is because you're
Mhm.
actually paying for that content. So the landscape for paid has gotten a lot more complex over the last 3 to 4 years just because of the amount of options you have. LSAs didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago. We've had PPC for a while. You can
Mhm.
even show up in the maps as a paid listing, which didn't exist, 4 or 5 years ago.
Gotcha. Thanks for explaining all that.
Yeah. So the next part would be video. We are just in a video age now. 5 years ago, if you were doing really high quality video, you would still be somewhat of an early adopter. The entire internet is focused around video now. The word podcast came out, which was voice only. Anybody who's in the top 100 in the podcast now have a video aspect to that. That's just the way people want to consume. Anybody 45 years or under is going to expect you to have a Facebook or YouTube page that has videos that explain who you are. And if you're not embracing video, then you're going to be left behind on two fronts. Number one, it's a great conversion tool because anybody who lands on your website and sees you talking about how passionate you are about your firm and the clients you work for, you're going to lose out on that conversion part of your marketing. And then video is now being consumed by AI. They're actually creating transcripts for anything that's out there online, and that can be used for you to show up in the large language models like ChatGPT and Perplexity. So you're getting two birds with one stone when you're doing really good informative content. I touched
Mhm.
on the PPC a little bit already. Organic SEO, I'm going to jump into. I've got one slide on that. Most people on here already understand the what organic SEO does and the advantages of it. I just want to make sure people don't jump over that. A lot of people are really jumping on the AI bandwagon, which you should be, but putting
Mhm.
all your eggs into that basket too soon, you might do at your own peril. Then there is your branding, TV, CTV, or otherwise known as OTT, which would be digital advertising, not your typical broadcast, and billboards. Those are your branding networks, and social media now is actually a really good place for you to do your own branding. If you don't have the budget of a Morgan and Morgan, you can carve out a place around your office where you can become the 800-pound gorilla with your messaging and your branding. And that's something we'll dive into a little bit deeper in a couple other slides. So I kind of alluded to this on the last slide, be the early adopter. These are two areas where attorneys have not really entrenched themselves yet. AI is fairly new, and most attorneys that I talk to are saying, "How do I optimize for this?" And that's a good way to think, but I wouldn't, as I mentioned before, put all your eggs into one basket. Trying to impress AI and completely ignoring SEO is not going to be a good strategy. Because AI and Google find a lot of the same content beneficial and trustworthy, you're going to hit both of those areas if you're doing a lot of things right. But there are some things that I'll mention in a minute that AI really loves that Google may not put such a high preference on. The big opportunity any law firm listening to this now has is social media. I talk to attorneys all day long, and I'm always inspecting what they're doing for social media. Most people are doing post for posting's sake. One of the jokes I always say is like you'll see Happy Thanksgiving, and then the next post will say Happy Holidays, and previous to that was, Happy Halloween. That is not the type of content people are going to engage with. You have a chance right now in social media to really let people know you before they need you. You're an attorney. You have a higher opinion on legal issues than most of the people that they know. If you can educate them on the things that are important to them through social media, that becomes share worthy. So you're going to get more impressions from people they share your content with, and you're going to get that branding effect that billboards and TV used to be the only options for. So my suggestion to you is if you're going to embrace social media, make sure you do your research and find out what type of content people are really going to engage with, and don't just post for posting's sake.
So I wanted to chat a little bit about artificial intelligence and leveraging it. And so this is from our 2025 legal trends report. And one of the things we've noticed is that the legal industry has jumped on AI. 79% in 2024 reported using AI, same in 2025, and it's higher than other professions. So it's definitely something that's resonating with lawyers that are out there. But I think it's important to figure out how they're using it and where it's really going to be driving some impact. Next slide, please. So when we asked the firms that are using AI, that 79%, what are the benefits that they're talking about? Two of them jumped out to me when it came to clients. We see that 63% of AI using law firms say they have a better client responsiveness. And that's because they're able to leverage this tool to help with messaging, help with the creation of materials for clients, help with marketing via newsletters, via their website, via social media. And they're also seeing 34% improved client satisfaction. And that's leading to things like better reviews being posted online. And the last one I want to point out is in the bottom right, that 29%, an increased competitiveness. These firms that are seizing AI are not only more responsive to clients and having more satisfied clients, but that's actually giving them an edge in the marketplace where they're able to leverage this tool and its outcomes in order to improve their business. And that leads to things like increased profitability. So don't dismiss AI as a client development and business development tool because the firms that are already using it are definitely reporting that they're having advantages from it. And so these are the early adopters. There's still time to become one of them. Next slide.
All right, so I had referred to this slide before as to give you a little bit of the differences of what AI finds trustworthy and credible compared to Google. Again, you're going to have, if you have a Venn diagram, you're going to have a lot of overlap of what Google finds trustworthy and what AI does. But one of the things that we're seeing is AI really likes brands. And you'll know this if you do searches, and I would encourage you to do a search, who is the best attorney near me, name your city, and then ask Perplexity or ChatGPT, why did you suggest these? A lot of times they're going to mention that things that are in a branding sense. It could be that they advertise a lot in Justia or Super Lawyers or Fine Law. It will reference social media. One of the things we've seen a lot later, they will actually pull up an Instagram post on the subject matter that you're searching. Local citations, what those are listings of your law firm. So wherever you put your name, address, and phone number. That could be the Better Business Bureau, your local Chamber of Commerce, your local bar associations. And the other one that we've seen that's really big is legal awards. And those could be things like Super Lawyers, which gets referenced a lot in legal. Justia gets referenced a lot in legal. And believe it or not, there's some websites that I've never heard of, which means that AI really is being a little bit more inclusive than what Google is. Google, you'll see a lot of the same sites repeated over and over, where AI might look more at a local community directory as opposed to a big national directory. On the right-hand side of the screen, the video content dominance. I alluded to this again a little bit earlier, but AI is looking at video and it's looking at transcripts, it's looking at podcasts. Anywhere that you can put yourself out there, AI has a chance to scrape that. And what they're going to do is they're going to use that as trust factors on who to present. And I think it's my next slide here where I'll talk about the key difference between Google and AI.
I find this fascinating. Yeah, because this is really um, what we're seeing from an advertising perspective, a huge change in how people are discovering things that are out there. So yeah, I'd love to learn more.
Yeah, no, this is great because people always ask, well, what's the real big difference? So Google is actually looking for web pages. It doesn't find websites. And what I mean by that is you might rank number one for car accident lawyer, but your wrongful death page is on, page 4. It's looking for individual pages that satisfy the query and the location of the person who's doing that search. So Google goes through and it creates its hierarchy, number one through, 100, we'll say.
Mhm.
And you really have to have one page of content that answers that question for Google. And it has to be trustworthy. And part of that trust, as most people know, are by inbound links. AI is the exact opposite. AI is looking at this corpus of information and it's synthesizing everything that it finds into a long answer. And most people will know you could ask for a simple recipe and you're going to get 12 paragraphs about how to cook,
Yeah.
lasagna. And the reason is because it's looking at sources that it trusts. It's pulling those individual answers together and then it's citing them. So it might cite you in paragraph one and cite a direct competitor in paragraph two because they had a great Instagram post or they were on a podcast or they were listed in Super Lawyers. So you really have to be more omnipresent when it comes to large language models. Google, focus on links to your website, having really good content. AI, you need to be more omnipresent. You have to put yourself out there into places that you weren't having to focus on before, and I would pick things that you're comfortable with. Again, start locally. Get into your local bar association. There's typically um, business directories that will be more local. That's going to be important because whether it's Google or AI, they do focus on where that person is searching from.
Oh, do we have something not loading?
Um, yeah, I don't know if that was a blank slide.
Let's keep going.
Okay, I mentioned that I was going to come back to SEO, and I know everybody who's been had a law firm
Mhm.
for 5 years or more has heard enough SEO talk. But I just want to stress on one important thing: do not ignore SEO in lieu of the shinier object right now, which is AI. We all know that AI is going to be a dominant place in the years to come. We don't know if that's a year away or 5 years away, but 68% of all online experiences start with a search engine like Google or Yahoo. That's still where you're going to get the majority of your calls if you're doing everything. You're going to get people who are actually going to Google or Yahoo and starting their search there. One of the things that we're also seeing, and this is anecdotal, is the people who are actually doing searches and starting in Perplexity or ChatGPT, they're still going online and they're doing a search to find your reviews. They want to look at your attorney bio. So you can't ignore that stuff on your website and just put all your eggs into the AI basket. So I won't go into all these. Like I said, most people know these. I'm happy to answer individual questions afterwards, but still focus on SEO until we find out that AI is the new leader in search.
So we have constantly been researching how clients and lawyers come together. And so as part of our 2025 legal trends report, we've just asked, like, how have you found the last lawyer you've hired? And 48% tell us that it was referral, which is very common. Word of mouth is one of the big things that lawyers rely upon for business. But what we see is the rest, over 50% of clients said that they looked at online resources. They did that internet search, which is the SEO that we're talking about here. They went to a lawyer's website to find information around them, and they looked at online reviews. And so, as Eric's telling you, your need to kind of support both good word of mouth and have a strong digital presence, strong digital brand are very important in finding clients that are out there. If you're not doing it, you're ignoring half the marketplace. What was interesting was this question asked about the last lawyer they hired. We also asked how would they go about finding their next lawyer. Next slide, please. And what we saw was a huge jump in people who would turn towards online resources, that internet search, the law firm website, and online reviews. It's becoming the dominant way in which people are going and looking for legal service providers. So you have to invest time, energy, and strategy into this. Fortunately, with some strong tools out there, it doesn't have to be, I think, a real difficult situation to take advantage of, but you do need to do it mindfully. Next slide.
Joshua, I want to make
Yeah,
one quick point about referrals.
yeah.
That's the number one thing I hear when I talk to a law firm. Hey, where are your best cases from?
Hmm.
100 times out of 100 referrals. And I get that. There's a couple things I think you should think about, though. Number
Hmm.
one, your referrals are completely out of your control. I would say, okay, how many referrals are you going to get next month?
Hmm.
Nobody knows. And the other thing, and this I see happening, is the people who are referring you cases now might not be as committed to you as you think they are. If you have a big giant come in, like a Morgan and Morgan, who says, "Hey, I'm going to give you a bigger percentage of the fee. Why don't you refer those cases to me?"
Hmm.
You're really taking the control of your business out of your own hands. So one point I would make is you should have some type of stream of client development that you actually control, and you're not just depending on referrals.
Hmm.
And other things to think about would be legacy. I talk to a lot of lawyers who have sons or daughters who work with them, or you might be pitching your law firm to sell.
Yeah.
The biggest part of what the value of your law firm is going to be worth is how many clients are you able to generate with your own marketing? Because those referrals will most likely disappear as soon as you're not part of that practice anymore. So as a
Yeah.
legacy or someone who's looking to sell their law firm eventually, those are things that I would consider.
Yeah, and referrals rely upon brand, right? People aren't referring to you simply because you're convenient. They're doing it because they're attaching their reputation to your brand. This is a lawyer I think you should talk to. And so all of those activities that you're talking about when it comes to branding and raising your profile is how you become that trusted resource that they're going to refer people to. So when we ask clients about finding a law firm, well, 84% said that it was very easy to find a law firm's website. So that's good. We're making ourselves available. But then when they got to the website, they were having problems trying to figure out what the next steps were, right? So, how do I pick a lawyer from this law firm? Is it a solo? Is it a bunch of people? Who do I contact? What's the process? Most firms have a contact us page, but they don't lay out what the next step's going to be. And then customer service, unfortunately, was very low. And pricing information, honestly, was non existent in a lot of the clients that we talk to. And while we know that pricing is a difficult conversation to have with clients, there should be some type of information, at least on do you bill hourly? Do you offer flat fees? How can they pay you, right? We take credit cards. All of these things are practical concerns that clients are looking for when they go to your website. And so not having this information available makes you seem just less transparent and can harm your brand as well. Next page, or next slide, please.
I'll add one quick thing to that on the
Yeah.
pricing. One of the other common issues that a lot of attorneys will talk about when their marketing is doing well is I keep getting these phone calls of people that can't afford us or they're not good cases. Putting your pricing on there will dissuade someone who can't afford you. So that's one way to be very transparent, and it's also a way to increase the number of qualified leads and maybe not have your intake team handle so many calls that really couldn't afford your services. The other thing is pricing becomes less of a matter if you have a brand. I always tell people if you have a good brand, in social media especially, they want to hire you. They don't do personal injury lawyer near me. They're looking for you because they already trust you. And then I know in personal injury we're talking about contingency fees, but still they'll start their search with you as opposed to just a generic search.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And what we're seeing is the need for some type of price transparency is so strong that we're even seeing other jurisdictions outside of the United States require some type of pricing information in lawyer websites and communications because they find that consumers just need it to help determine who they're going to hire. Next slide. So when we ask clients and lawyers what are their top three priorities when choosing it, you were absolutely right. The top one was more brand related. Do they have experience with similar cases, right? So talk about your expertise, talk about your wins, talk about the type of clients and legal problems that you are tackling, because that will make them choose you over somebody who's advertising how cheap they are, but they may not have the experience or expertise face forward. A reputable law firm was second highest, and positive clients reviews was third highest, right? There we see pricing actually came in towards the bottom. It was still considered somewhat important, but it wasn't the primary thing that customers were looking for when it came to choosing a lawyer. They just wanted to know as a part of the process, what's this going to cost me? Next slide. So we do lots of research. And one of the things we did in 2025 was a secret shopper program. This is actually the second time we've done it. We did it in 2019, where we crafted targeted outreach to over 1,000 randomly selected law firms across the United States. We created client personas, that client legal problems that were tailored to the individual law firms, and we reached out to them. And honestly, the results were really bad. We had a very hard time getting firms to respond. Of the 1,000 we contacted via their website, over 500 didn't get back to us at all. Most said actually just phone us. And then when we phoned them, another half of them didn't pick up their phone. So we thought after a pandemic and the rise of distributed technologies and video meeting and all that, things might be better. So in 2025, we did another secret shop with 500 randomly selected law firms, tailored outreach by potential clients. And our shoppers came back, and 78% of them said they would not recommend the law firm that they reached out to. What they did tell us was the manner in which they communicated to them. And phone, especially the phone that was answered, received the highest ratings when it came to customer service, getting step-by-step information. There are two more I'll show later. The thing I want to point out on this slide that I think is different, though, especially from our 2019 survey, is that dark blue line linked to chatbot. It, in every instance, had the second highest rating of satisfaction by our secret shoppers. And what this tells me is we can be leveraging things like artificial intelligence as a part of our business development. We can use chatbots to act as a customer service filter or a guide for things that aren't legal information, but our clients need to know, like, what's the step-by-step process in hiring this law firm? Hey, I think you're a good fit. What's next? And the chatbot can be like, let's schedule an appointment for you. Next slide, please.
One quick anecdotal story about the chatbot. I work with a high-end personal injury attorney, high-end meaning they do a lot of volume, and
Yeah,
they do tracking for all of the leads that come in. 30% of the PPC leads that they sign come from chatbot.
really?
So if you're
Wow.
not incorporating chatbot into your website, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. I use an analogy all the time. If I'm in a rush and I'm looking for a restaurant with a drive-through, if you don't have a drive-through, then I'm not going to go to that restaurant. If I'm in a hurry and I'm not going to call because I'm at work, I don't want somebody to hear my conversation and I'd rather do a chat. If you don't offer that option, you're not going to get that client.
That's really interesting. And it's their PPC that's leading them there. So, right, somebody's searching, right? They click on an ad. So it's already costing the law firm, right? But
Yeah.
then when they get to the website, if there's a chatbot, then it becomes a stronger return on investment for paying for that ad. That's really great example.
Yeah, and every conversion counts. In a paid campaign, you're running thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars. If
Mhm.
you increase your close rate by 10% because you have chat, you've already made something that might have been borderline into a successful marketing channel.
Yeah, and chat is actually a great filter mechanism as well, right? And so people can just ask questions like, "Hey, do you do pro bono cases on this?" Right? And the chatbot can say, "No, we only take paying clients." And suddenly, you personally aren't having to waste time on a window shopper, right? You've eliminated that do not hire drag on your time, and then you've saved yourself to focus on the clients who are a good fit. So I think it's a dual purpose tool here. Next
Exactly.
slide. Chatbots continue to come in second place when it came to understanding the step by steps and finding pricing information. So, all of these are things that you should be considering once you bring people to your website. Do I have the right types of technology to take advantage of all of this investment that I've made in advertising and branding? Next slide. So when we asked clients specifically about chatbots, there were two bullet points here that popped out to me. The second from the bottom, I think, is the appropriate starting place. 51% of clients said chatbots are a useful starting point, just like the example you were raising. But the top one, 61%, said I only want to use a chatbot if I could switch to a human if needed. And that's because people, when they come to a law firm's website, are coming to hire a lawyer. They know the value of your professional services. So as you're implementing these tools, and I think you should, make sure that its pathway is either leading towards disqualification, we're not the right fit, let me direct you to a lawyer referral service, right? In our jurisdiction that may be able to help you find a different lawyer, or I think we might be a good fit for you. Here's how we're going to take a next step. Let's schedule an appointment. Let me have somebody call you, right? Have that escalation pathway out of there. So that hard work that you've done in bringing somebody to the website and qualifying them now turns into that next step. Next slide, please. And what we found is firms that are using tools like Clio Grow, which is our online intake tool, actually have found some real financial benefits in using technology to take these qualified leads and turn them into clients. So specifically, they're using the features online schedulers, linking Google's local search ads, the LSA ads, to their lead development process, and having online intake forms. The firms that are using these services on their website have 51% more client leads and 52% more revenue. And they're also seeing some other benefits here. Next slide, please.
Yeah, and one other thing I'll add to this is anybody who's running a marketing budget, you need to associate a cost per signed client to every one of your channels. And if you're using something like Clio Grow and you can say, here are the 10 clients we signed this month, and you can match that up to where they came in. Now, attribution is tough. If you are doing marketing right and you're doing branding and you're doing the bottom of the funnel marketing, you might not know where that first contact was. You're typically only going to get the last point of contact, but that's extremely valuable information. And it's made much easier by tools like this as opposed to a spreadsheet where you're just color coding things and trying to go back and look where an email or a chat came from. So this will inform you when used properly on where to spend more of your budget and where to pull budget away from if it's not converting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. Just being able to say this client came from a Google local service ad. I keep doing local search ad. Um, lets you know that it's worth the cost of attaching your business listing to that advertising service. And that's something that both you, Eric, can help a firm do, and we also have some built-in tools to help take advantage of that in Clio. So when if you have Clio Grow and local service ads connected, when they're searching for somebody in Google, they can actually see a schedule an appointment link in Google without even going to your website. That's how powerful these tools can extend your reach once you really take advantage of them. So next slide. So the other thing we wanted to point out is there are certain features that actually have some really tangible benefits when it comes to using these types of tools as well. What we found is e-signatures and these online search ads had a measurable and significant difference in how quickly potential clients become signed clients. So if you have these built into your workflow where people find, the best motorcycle lawyer in Santa Fe, right? And you have the ability to sign an engagement agreement using e-signature, you're going to close that business faster. And we see that other tools like online scheduler and online intake forms also increase the speed of that as well. So rather than you having a consultation with a client and them going away and maybe a month later signing with you, you can actually be using these tools to close the deal quick. I do want to point out, just for transparency's sake, we found this odd -1% in terms of speed when using text messaging. It wasn't that they weren't closing, they weren't becoming clients. It was just slower on firms that were using that feature. Honestly, I can't tell you why, but we try to be transparent, and so I always include it. And in addition to being able to close clients quickly, the next slide also talks about how many of those leads are you closing. And the biggest bump actually came from e-signatures. And this is me in personal life as well. If you're sending me a PDF that I have to print out, sign, scan, and then email back to you, I am less likely to do that. Whereas if it's a click here to sign in my email, that's a quick and easy conversion. And so we found, just by using that, it was a 10% bump in conversions of potential clients to signed clients. Really liked that. And you can see the increases that came from the other features that we measured, including a 5% bump from text messaging. So they might be slower, but they're converting higher. So it really is a question of how you want to use this technology, but having it is what's making the difference for the law firms out there. And the last thing I want to point out, and this I think will really lead into the brand and AIEO, that AI search that Eric's talking about. This is from our 2023 Legal Trends report, where we asked to just rate out of 100 what's most important to you when hiring a law firm. And client reviews dominated, just dominated, followed by location, right? And so, as Eric's telling you, creating a brand and creating a brand linked to your geography are probably two of the strongest things you can do as you're looking to build out your digital marketing strategy. Thanks for letting me interject there.
Sure. Yeah, to just carry that branding forward a little bit, and I won't spend that much time on this slide because we did address this a little before, but your branding versus buying mode. Branding is really getting some simplistic messaging out there. And again, I know most of the stuff that you may see in legal is cheesy, the Better Call Saul type stuff. But it really would be important for you moving forward to have something that is easily recognizable. In the old school way, which I'm showing here, would be a billboard, has its limitations, but you're not just limited to these old school ways anymore. It used to be billboards, bus benches, or TV. And those were expensive options and were very limited, which I'll cover a little in the next slide. The buying mode we discussed already. These are people who are actively searching. They're quote unquote shopping for a lawyer. So being in local service ads, your organic, the LSA or the PPC, that's going to help with that conversion. This right here, I can't emphasize this enough. Social media, I was not a believer in social media 3 years ago. I just didn't think anybody would hire an attorney on a really serious case from social media. But social media allows you to do things the best of both worlds. But it's kind of a combination between search and branding. Old school traditional branding was so limited. Even the most well-funded law firms were probably not doing more than 3 or 4 different iterations of a commercial in 6 months. Your billboards, you're going to put up a billboard. It's a very short message with a phone number. You're not going to change that more than once every 6 months or so. And it was really hard to attribute if you were just doing branding. Why did you call us first? I saw your billboard on the 405. It's not something that most people would say. It was just kind of a long-term play. Google search, there's really no branding effect there. You're just hitting people who are in a buying mode. Now, social media rests in the middle of these. TikTok, believe it or not, is a search engine. YouTube is a search engine. It's also connected to Google and Gmail. So the amount of data that they have when people are doing searches within YouTube is unbelievable. The amount of shares on TikTok that our attorneys are getting, we're seeing attorneys that are getting posts in the hundreds of thousands with informative content. The other thing that this does is it really pulls back all of the barriers that you had before from TV. TV was high production, high cost just to produce the ad, and then you had to pay to get your message out there. That social media is in 180 degrees in the opposite direction. You want low production value. If it looks like an ad, it will get treated like an ad, meaning people don't go to TikTok or Instagram because they want to watch legal ads. They go there for fun as an escape to see something informative. But a well timed, educated, organic looking ad will get engagement. For example, if you're a medical malpractice attorney that focuses on birth injury, if you said, "Hey, are you going in for a planned cesarean section? Here are 3 questions you need to ask your doctor." Okay, any pregnant woman is probably going to watch that content, and they might send it to all of the people who are in their moms groups. That's the type of content that you can produce at volume. You can just pick up your phone and create it in a matter of minutes, as opposed to doing this old school branding that was really, really expensive. And that's what people are not doing well in legal right now. You'll see a few really, really good influencers who are also attorneys that are really able to capture this and really generate a following. But 99% of attorneys out there have not figured out how to master this yet. And it's easier than you think.
Yeah, I'm put in mind of the Legal Eagle, right? Who has YouTube explainers for different legal situations. A lot of them linked to like current events. And basically they just leverage a current event, their knowledge of it to provide some general legal information, throw in a little humor, and they have hundreds of thousands of followers. And so this is exactly the type of thing that you're talking about. We don't think of it as advertising. We think of it as educating, but really it builds, as you're saying, that know, like, trust and keeps you top of mind when it comes time then to hire a lawyer.
Yeah, I agree. The branding can even be more powerful because seeing a billboard on the freeway is not going to resonate as much as you educating a person on a medical malpractice issue or an estate planning issue or a personal injury issue. They will actually be looking for you and not doing a Google search. The other thing I wanted to quickly mention is most attorneys that I talk to have absolutely no interest in being an influencer. And a lot of times when I first broach this with a law firm, they think that I'm going to want them to do cheesy videos and, whatever's trending on TikTok. And it couldn't be further from the truth. You're an attorney, you have a set of knowledge that most people don't. And your word is going to be regarded higher, not just by them, but by large language models and Google. So you don't have to do anything cheesy. But if you are completely adamant that you don't want to be on social media, I would find somebody in your firm who will embrace it. Now, it's ideal if you're a partner or the managing partner to do it, but if you don't want to do it, you can push that off to somebody else. I've also seen law firms be very successful by partnering with a local attorney that wants to be an influencer. So maybe they really enjoy putting out content, but they don't want to be in trial. I've seen really successful partnerships where you partner with them, you can put a budget, you can do fee sharing with them. They become your social media arm. However that contract is put together is up to you. But those are for people who just are adamant about not shooting their own content.
Just get yourself a rainmaker.
Right, right.
No.
We're almost done here. I wanted to finish with something that's a little more exciting. This is something that most law firms really enjoy because it's more tangible. And I tell people when you do PR the right way, it has such a cascading effect of positives. And the other thing I'll tell people is having a newsworthy story or newsworthy case is not the same as getting news. You have to have somebody who has connections in PR and knows how to leverage that PR to give you those cascading effects. And what I mean by that is getting in the local news is one thing, but having follow-up stories, getting links back to your website that Google is going to be impressed by takes a specific type of a strategy. So I'm going to walk you through a campaign that we worked on. Some of you might remember this. This happened about 9, 10 months ago. There was an explosion at an ammunition factory, and this was in Tennessee. Unfortunately, it killed 13 people. Now, our client was signed one of the first wrongful death cases from this explosion. That is a newsworthy case. But as I mentioned, having a newsworthy case and getting in the news are two separate things. They reached out to us right away and said, "Hey, this is what happened. Here's one of the news stories that was already covered. We've signed one of these people who was killed in the explosion." And that week, our attorney got not just one TV interview, but two. And the cascading effect, and this isn't even a complete list, the cascading effect was all these follow-up stories. So you'll see lots of news that was covered. A lot of these YouTube links are actually from the news organizations themselves because the news has to adopt social media as well. So not only did the news put out this story on their Instagram channel, but the reporter's Instagram channel who covered the story put it on his Instagram channel. This is the type of thing that accumulates. This is the type of thing that Google is impressed by, the type of thing that AI is impressed by. And this is definitely the type of thing that will differentiate you amongst your peers in your local market. As soon as they see your face next to a news symbol, you've got instant trust with your public. And if you don't have a newsworthy story, there are ways to create news for you. A quick example is we might mine a data set. We found a data set that ranks nursing homes by, they grade them A through F, A being best, F not being so good. And taking a data set like that and building a beautiful page and taking information that's really listed in an Excel sheet and making it interesting and being able to have mouse over effects that pull that data to life and point out the biggest impacts of your state's nursing homes, that's something that can be made newsworthy. So having a newsworthy story, great. You still need a talented crew to be able to get you attention. If you don't have something newsworthy, there's ways to make yourselves newsworthy. A couple quick takeaways. I know we're right about the end. We're about exactly at an hour. There's never been more competition than there has been now. I guess we don't have to reiterate the whole John Morgan and all of your other competitors. You really need to embrace a branding and a search strategy. Having just a AI or a Google strategy is only going to get you halfway there. I would pick a branding medium that you like. It could be billboards and bus benches. That's fine. That still will cover that branding topic. Social media is the future. We are in an era now that's similar to the early 2000s where attorneys that embraced websites and SEO, they cleaned up for years. They got ahead of the race and they stayed there for a long time. That's the opportunity I think everybody has in social right now. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is, turning newsworthy stories into news. That's something that I don't think was as attainable a few years ago. But because the news is really incentivized to use social media and they're looking for handmade stories that we can deliver to them on a silver platter, those are ways for you to differentiate yourself in your market. And with that, I will open it up to any questions from any of the patient attendees that have been listening.
So I am seeing some questions in the Q&A. An anonymous attendee has one that I think is directed to me. Why choose Clio instead of other CRM softwares? This is not an ad for Clio. I came to support Eric's messaging with our research, but I will say that it's an integrated CRM, customer relationship management software, which means that it helps take all of that intake work that you do anyway in any other CRM and links it into the Clio suite of software. Clio Manage for case management, Clio Draft for advanced document automation, Clio Work for AI, Clio Payments for payment processing. And so it's a great tool that not only does a good job of client intake, but also then feeds all of that labor into the rest of what you're going to do with a converted client. So if you're interested in more, just swing by Clio.com to find out. And then I see a question from Melissa. How does a firm determine if SEO considers them a reputable firm? Eric, how do we determine that?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways. If you have access to some SEO tools, and I don't represent any of them, but SEO Moz is a good one, Ahrefs is a good one. You can plug your website into these tools, and there's I always explain it as if you go to the doctor and they take your weight, they take your height, they take your blood pressure. There are general signs to find out if your website is good. And it's different for different firms in different markets. For example, one of the things that you'll see is a domain rank or domain rating. Now, if you're in a small market, let's just say you're in a small market like Tulsa, if you're in the 20 area, you're probably competitive enough that your website has a chance to rank against your other competitors. If you're in Chicago, you probably want your domain rating a lot closer to the 40s and 50s because it's a bigger market, it's more competitive. The law firms there have invested more into their SEO. So there's the general number of what is your domain rating, and then the other one is where's your competition at? And you can plug into these SEO tools your competitors' websites, and it will show you in graphical form where you're strong and where you need improvement. The other way, if you don't have access to these tools, would be to start doing Google searches and do them for the terms that are important to you, whether those are personal injury or employment or criminal defense. Look at who's in the top five. Those are the people with the strongest SEO presences, and then keep going through Google searches until you find yours. If you're in the first two pages, you're in the game. And doing some subtle tweaks from SEO, content link building can really get you up to that first page in several months' time. If you're not in the top 10 pages or if you're in the back half of that, it's going to take some more work.
One of the things I recommend is just jump into a generative AI tool like a ChatGPT. Describe what your firm does, and then ask it, what are some search terms that people might use to try and find a lawyer like me? And that's what you should be typing in. Don't think you know everything your clients are going to be asking a Google or a ChatGPT, but instead let that tool brainstorm some searches for you. So that way you get a much bigger picture of where your gaps might lie.
Yep. And the last question I see in here is a thank you from Randy Knutson. So thank you very much. I'm glad you joined. And for everybody who's on here who maybe have a colleague that wasn't able to attend, we are going to be sending out a recording of this that you can forward on. Melissa, you're welcome. So everybody will get that. And please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is Eric, ERIC, at elitemktg.com. And Joshua, I don't know if you want to provide any contact information.
Yeah, so it's Joshua at Clio.com. That's CLIO.com. And I'm also active on LinkedIn and Blue Sky. So I'm a big believer in social media branding. I would love to connect with you on those places as well.
Thanks everybody for joining. Joshua, thank you so much for participating. Really appreciate your time.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for including me.